Hey, everybody. Michael Sherlock here. Casual on Casual Friday. I'm getting ready. Actually, I feel like kind of hippie Michael today, and that's kind of fun. I'm getting ready to head to the aeropuerto, and I'm going to go fly across the country and see my mother. And I'm looking forward to it very much. So, not that you all needed to know that, but that's why I'm so chilled out today in terms of my dress code. So, I got a great follow up email after last week's episode. So, as we went live last week and we were talking about, how do we communicate with a boss, with colleagues? How do you have better communication with your team? And somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I really need some advice. I have challenges with my boss, and there were a few challenges that this person has. And in fact, I actually invited her to have a coaching session with me, and we will be releasing that session within the next 2 weeks in the coaching series or the coaching corner room of the app. So look forward to that because it's really good. We had a really incredible dialogue. But one of the things that she said to me that I thought was really important to tackle, she said, look, I have a number of things that I need my boss's approval on. And if I don't get them, I may not be able to deliver what I needed to deliver to our clients, especially on time. And so she talked a lot about her boss being, having a lot to do and how he many times will say, hey, you don't understand how much work I've got going on. So we talked a little through the protocol, and the environment that she's in is pretty relaxed. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot of protocol. So therefore, it's hard to get people to follow protocol when there is no protocol. So I want to first tell you, the things that I kind of suggested to her. And then I'm going to talk about something else I thought of afterward and how it relates to my team and what I'm learning about myself and how to help my team, especially my remote team. So first of all, the advice I gave her is number one, schedule a time and reach out to the boss and say, look, I have certain things that every week I just need clearance on. And what I'd like to ask of you is to give me 15 minutes every Monday at 2 o'clock. And I threw those numbers out there. It doesn't matter what day or what time, but be very specific when you know kind of that person's schedule. Every Monday at 2 o'clock, and I only need 15 minutes of your time. Now, given what scenario you may have going, this may not work for you, but in her scenario, she could do it. She just usually had a laundry list of things. She just needed to hear yes, 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 question, go on, and get done. So I said, if you can say to him, look, I'm going to make your job easier. Instead of me sending you all these emails, which is her pattern, she'd send him an email. There's nothing wrong with this process. She would send him an email. He wouldn't respond. After a couple of days, she'd call. He wouldn't necessarily pick up the phone. And then she's texting him saying, I need you to approve this right now. Can you help me? And so you could tell that her stress level is really related to the fact that she was trying to follow process where there was no process. And she was trying to respect, the authority in the chain of command, but it was ultimately harming the organization and their clients. So, it was a great dialogue to say, just say, look, I need 15 minutes. I promise to keep it short. My second piece of advice, though, is make sure that every time you give him the bullet points at least 1 hour before that meeting. So you send it and say, here's the 10 things that I need to cover. If you need any other details, let me know. With an idea of that, sending an hour before, that's for simple things that are standard that you'd see. If there are things that are more complex, then you need at least 4 hours ahead of time, if not more, depending on the complexity of the situation, in which case you may need more time in that meeting anyway. But the goal is to make sure that you have a set time every week and say, I'll be able to get 95% of everything I need done this week, this time, every time. And then when I call you, it's only going to be because it's an emergency and I need something right then. So helping that leader to understand you do need to be here for me, but I'm going to try and make it as easy for you as possible. Then anything that happens in that meeting. So if he says, yes, 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 then that's your approval. Go with it. But follow up immediately, and I mean immediately, the moment you walk out of that meeting or you turn off the Zoom link or you hang up the phone, you follow with an email that says, Dear Bob, and I always talk about these people like Bob. I don't know why my nose always itches while I get on this. Oh, there's my son. He says, I love you, Mom. I love it too. Thanks, honey. I'm going to go see my son right after seeing my mama too. I'm very excited to see him. And anyway, so sorry, I'm totally distracted now. So when you send that email though, that's your follow-up, and that's important for protecting yourself. So that you say, thank you, Bob, for that meeting. I appreciate that these were the 10 agenda items that we had that you gave me approval on. I will be following up please let me know if you have any other questions, and hold on to that email. Now, this young woman who shared her story with me, there's some other issues with this boss, and some of them have to do with trust and trust in an environment where you need to trust each other for the kind of work they do with their clients. So my suggestion to her was, this is when you document. This is when you keep that email in a folder so that if there's ever any question, you can say, here's the agenda I sent him the hour before. Here's the notes I said right after, and I never received another following email. So therefore, I operated under the best assumption that this was all fine since he gave me verbal approval. Those steps will help to protect you. But they also start to set up a pattern of how you need to interact with your boss to be able to communicate. Now, keep this in mind. As a leader myself, I hate to have things just like knock me upside the head, especially if I'm crazy busy. It can throw you off when you're in one zone and somebody goes, I need you right now. So the best way to avoid that is to help prepare people. Now, that doesn't mean you aren't going to have fires you need to put out, but it's about preparation. So with my team, if there's something new they want to discuss, unless the building is burning down, I want them to send me a note and give me a little heads up, and then we schedule time to talk about it. But then after I got done with this conversation with this young woman, I thought more about this, and I thought more about my evolution as a leader. And this is the thing that I know is that I can get completely buried in email, and I might get an email that I know is important. And by an hour later, it is 17 emails down in my inbox, and it is no longer at the top of my mind, which means that things that are important can get lost. Now, that's my failing, but that's the failing of a lot of people. And I guess maybe I shouldn't even call it a failing. It's just a challenge of many people that email is so overwhelming that things that are important can get lost in that shuffle. So how do you avoid it? Well, I did something completely different. See, my entire team is remote, and the vast majority of my team is based in another country and 7-hour time difference. So they need things from me, and I need things from them. Now, when they need things from me, it might not always be at the time that I'm thinking about it or even awake, and it may not be super critical to get it right then, but if they need that day, I need to be able to deliver it. So we actually started using a software where we're tracking everybody's to-do lists. We're tracking projects, but mostly we're tracking tasks. So over the last couple of months when we have transitioned to this, if somebody needs something for me, I tell them, send me a task. And then that task shows up on my calendar, and I know I have to complete it, and I know it's urgent for that day. If it's not, then they'll tell me this is not urgent, but I put this day on it and you can move it around. I try and do the same thing for them. If I have something like, let's say here's a great example. I did a podcast interview this week, and there was some editing that I needed to have during the middle of the podcast. Very rarely need to have editing in the middle. So when I sent that on to our podcast manager, I said, hey, I'm putting today's date on this, but I don't know when you're planning to edit it because we're not airing it until October. So it's fine. So I said, but please make sure that you put this on whatever date you are going to edit that. So we'll make sure not to lose this task, that in the middle, here's some editing things that need to be done. So that gives him the opportunity to change that date, whatever. It's not urgent to me, but I want to make sure he has it and he can work that on his time zone and in his timeline. So as you kind of get my theme here, that communication is about, finding channels where we are regularly communicating. So we're talking about, things that aren't just coming out of the blue. And since my son popped up, I'll use a little example. He may not be watching anymore. I don't know. But he was reaching his point of his 1 year mark with his job. And he wanted to have a sit down and review with his boss. And he's like, how do I do it? I mean, he knew what he wanted to say, but how do I get it scheduled? And I said, you just say, I'd like to schedule this. This is time. And during this, I want to talk about how I'm meeting your objectives, what things you want me to continue to work on. How do you see my progress? Now, all those things come together because you say, I'd like to have a meeting. I'd like to schedule the time. And those communication factors then go. And I just realized now too, that normally I'm supposed to be sitting on that other chair and not this chair because my producer people don't like me to have this chair. So sorry about that. This is a day that's a little off, which means that if my team needs anything for me, they better send me a task. So for all of you, thank you for joining us again. Next week, I will be joining you live again, but from a very different location at a different time of day for me. So we'll just leave a little mystery with that. Please make sure, if you haven't already, download our Shock Your Potential app. Just search for Shock Your Potential in your app store and download us. The vast majority of the content in there is free. We have so many things coming. And if you haven't heard this from me already, you definitely want to make sure that before September 7th, way before, you sign up for the executive membership, $6 a month, and you register in the app with your info, because we have a really special program that is going to knock your socks off. So always, you can find us at shockyourpotential.com. And let's see, was there anything else I wanted to say? Have a fabulous Friday. And remember, communication is always the key. And the more you communicate, the better Yoga Dog will help you find your peace. He has to make it into every broadcast. He gets really upset if I don't. Have a great weekend, you guys. Talk soon.